All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Teaching Crypto. Please hit that like, that subscribe, bell notification. Super chats in the store are open. We're going to try to build some momentum. We're going to try to get Bitcoin up and running despite everything else that's happening in the world. So, Mr. FOMO, we have some good news that's going under the radar. And sometimes when there are huge world events, some news gets kind of swept under the rug. So this is big. You know, I'm from the state of Ohio. Ohio has just unanimously passed a $200 capital gains exemption and Bitcoin rights out of the House. Okay. This is the strongest piece of Bitcoin rights legislation to date, according to Dennis Porter. Basically, this means, and I have to get clarification, I think this is per transaction. I don't think this is per 24 hours, as we discussed. Any Bitcoin sell or purchase, let's say you go to Steak and Shake and you treat your whole entire baseball team, Little League team,
With some beef tallow fries.
yeah, yeah. That is tax exempt. Okay. That is tax. Yeah, you got to reverse that hat, Mr. FOMO. We got to get some momentum going. That is tax exempt. And this is significant not because you are moving your family to Ohio, although I highly suggested at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you and Mrs. FOMO could handle the winters. Although I can recommend some great restaurants and a great barber that watches the show. But that aside, this is significant because I think this is step one. And I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see much larger exemptions, which is eventually going to lead to Bitcoin being legal tender and not having a capital gains tax. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But this is the first historic step right here.
Yeah, I'd like to get clarity on the $200 because it seems like a very small amount to be capital gains exempt. So I need to get more clarity on that. I didn't read up on this much last night, so I'll have to read up on it a little bit more. But I think you're right. I think this is one small step on the way to there being zero capital gains on Bitcoin transactions overall. And a very tiny, small step on Bitcoin becoming legal tender.
But if it's per transaction, you know how much things cost. You go to an amusement park, you go to dinner, you go to a game, and you could do it for every transaction. That means you're kind of living off the Bitcoin standard at that point. You know what I mean?
Never spend my Bitcoin that way.
Well, yeah, well, but you bought it 30. Now in the imaginary world it's 180 and you're in Ohio and you need to go out to dinner. You're gonna spend it. You rebuy that Bitcoin when it goes back down and you keep repeating. And unlike other states, you're not paying the capital gains. So that is significant. That's why some people have moved to Puerto Rico and other parts of the world that aren't taxing Bitcoin. So I don't want to put this down. Even $200
Oh, yeah,
not a lot of money.
I don't want to seem like I'm putting it down, but yeah.
It's a big step. And I don't think Ohio is going to be the only state to do this for $200. No. What you're going to see is the amount go up pretty soon, $2,000, right? And then now we're talking some real money.
Yeah, I would have to get clarity on what that means because I have a feeling it means something different than what we're saying.
Well, but if you right now, if you go to the grocery store and they accept Bitcoin and you spend $300, that's a taxable event. Mm-hmm. What it's saying is it would not be in this case.
And so spending your Bitcoin basically is not a taxable event.
Spending your Bitcoin, yes, is not a taxable event. But I think this is significant because according to the law right now, you give up your Bitcoin in any way, whether it's exchange for purchases or US dollars or a stable coin, that is a taxable event. Once it's not, it opens up the floodgate. So I think that's where this is pretty significant here.
Good. Yeah. I think as far if you were going to spend your Bitcoin that way, if you were going to use it for purchases, and who knows? I mean, there may be people out there with enough Bitcoin to do that. But I hoard my Bitcoin, so
but the idea is once you sell it, it's not that you're going to rebuy it. and you're going to keep doing it. And as Bitcoin
Mhm.
goes up, you are beating inflation dramatically, right? So that's the idea. And I don't remember the gentleman's name, but there is a gentleman that actually is on YouTube, and all he does is buy and sell Bitcoin. He started very early, right? So a lot of his Bitcoin is
And it's,
averages are in the hundreds. So he has a gigantic advantage, but he'll sell the Bitcoin, a little bit of the Bitcoin that's valuable. When Bitcoin has a little bit of a 10, 20% down, put that money back and just constantly do it over and over again. And if you don't have to worry about capital gains, you are not only beating the system right now, destroying the system, but you have to be in a country that allows you to do that. And the United States isn't yet. So I think that's where, listen, there are more and more people. And when this was brought to me, I thought it was lunacy, where the BTC will become the world's reserve currency. And at first, I thought this is never going to happen. I think there's a realistic chance this happens in our lifetime with the way the dollar is being devalued. Um, it's
I
it,
think I think that's I think that's the point, right? The dollar is being devalued at such a, sorry, let me get this comment at such a dramatic rate that it's hard to not see anything else, especially something like Bitcoin becoming the world's reserve currency. It's almost not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
all right, Mr. FOMO. And this is big because we lived through the Voyager nightmare. And you remember USD did not count the same as US dollars. Well, here we go. Yesterday, this passed. Okay. The Genius Acts did pass. Now it's going to the House. And look at the word insured. That is what I'm looking at. That's significant. Okay. Now, there are a lot of rules that you have to follow, right? To to
Mhm.
to issue and have a stable coin. But the word insured is what got me. That is going to give people a freedom, knowing, okay, my all my money's not going to disappear. This is significant, and this looks like it will definitely pass the House. So this is monumental, because I think digital assets. Look, we looked at the thing in New Jersey with Avalanche just at the beginning. I think digital assets and stable coins are going to be huge. Yes, AI is going to be gigantic. Robotics is going to be gigantic. But I think stable coins and digital assets and tokenization are going to be something over the next 20 years that are dramatically going to change finance. Now, even a year ago, people would have laughed us on the laughed us off the off the YouTube channel. Now they're not laughing as much. This is significant. I think 20 years they'll look back and say, wow, this was the beginning.
Yeah, I think this is important because I mean, a lot of people talk about how XRP is going to be used for remittance, but I don't think you're going to use an unstable
Mhm.
asset to trade different currencies, right? You're just not going to. It's just too much work, and so I think stable coins are going to be important. But I think the most important thing there is that it cancels out things like algorithmic stable coins
Mhm.
because it has to be backed 1 to 1 at least by the U.S. dollar, and that was in there as well. So I think that is important. But again, like you said, this is the first step in a long road to getting stable coins, I think, being used across the US. And so I'm excited to see this pass. I hope to see more crypto legislation passed, so that we get a little bit more clarity in the market and maybe whittle down some of these ridiculous tokens that are being minted every day.
Yeah. So on top of that, and I forgot to mention this to you pre-show, we had more big news. So as you know, I, people are focused on wars, which is awful, awful. Hope those come to an end. But again, that's for another show, not necessarily today. JP Morgan is deploying a stable coin called JPMD on base. Okay. How about that, Mr. FOMO? JP Morgan.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they just a few years ago said that crypto was ridiculous? That if anybody in their bank even suggested investing in crypto, that they would be fired. And now look at where we are.
Things are
They're
slowly
they're
changing.
deploying their own stable coin now. And that's not slow change. That's sea change over the course of maybe 3 or 4 years.
That's what I'm saying. 5, 10 years from now, think about the changes we're going to see. I think it's going to be pretty dramatic. That's why you want to stick to the show, because we're going to be coming up with amazing opportunities. So the altcoin season we're going to talk about has been taken away from us, but we're going to have some special shows, and we're going to show you there are money making opportunities that you may or may not be aware of. And when these stable coins become available, they'll be interesting to see. I think the people that know how to use them properly will have a big advantage. And that's one of the reasons, hey, if you're not subscribed to the show, please share, because we're coming with some great content here. So this is really, really interesting
And
to
then,
me.
I mean, pay attention to which networks are deploying things like USDC and USDT. I mean, we don't invest in XRP necessarily because we think it's the future of finance. The XRP now deploys USDC on their network as a stable coin, and so XRP becomes more valuable because they have USDC. Same thing with Tron. You're not investing in Tron because of Justin Sun. You're investing in Tron because they have a lot of tether. And so there's stable coins do sway what you invest in sometimes.
All right, Mr. FOMO. 104. We have a lot of, and don't forget Texas. It's either going to be signed or go into law. First major state to officially have a Bitcoin reserve, where they're going to buy tens upon millions of Bitcoin every single year. We should be, and I posted this on X a few days ago, somewhere around 130K right now. I truly believe that. Had Israel not gone after Iran, then that's where we'd be. Okay, I stand by that. Okay, even with the Ukraine Russia situation going on and the other unrest, and I still think that would have been the case. But here we are. This is realistic. Every night we get rumors that the U.S. is going in. In fact, last night Trump had a emergency meeting with the Security Council, scheduled a press conference. It didn't go through with it. Okay, I don't know if they called the FOMO household to see if your vacations were still going on or not, and that was part of the decision or not. But as of right now, the U.S. is not officially in. We'll continue to monitor the situation. All kidding aside, this has completely, as ETH was slowly starting to show progress, people were saying, "Oh, now ETH going up. Here's the alt season coming back." I asked you before the show, "Hey, Cardano's at 60 cents. Is that a good buy?" And why don't you tell the viewers what your response was to me at that point?
What's a good buy at this point? It's hard to tell what's a good buy with what's going on in the world and what's going on with the altcoin market. For me, I'd love to tell you that I would invest in Arkham Intelligence, and because I think that de-anonymizing the blockchain would be a huge thing in the future. But the problem is, ever since I invested in Arkham, it's gone down. And then you got things like AIOZ, that are AI related. And I'd love to be giving you all these altcoins that I think are the best things in the world that I'm personally invested in, even some of them.
What about Muse, Mr. FOMO? Market cap is down to 3.8 million.
Oh, what's the price at now?
753.
It's a buy.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Muse is a different character, though. There's somebody out there that pump and dumps Muse. And so Muse is a different character. I was going to mention that next, but Muse is one of those ones where it gets down to like $5, $6, $7. You buy it and hang on to it, because eventually
the all-time high is $125.90. The yearly high was $26.69. Look,
that's
it.
Eventually,
That's like a lottery
it's going to
ticket.
get in the 20s.
You put not financial advice. You put a couple $100 in there, and that goes to 70. There you go. That's
I don't think
that's
it's going to go to 70, but there is
well. I mean, you
somebody
know
that
what?
pumps it to the 20s here and
Look,
there.
look. It's not likely, but 380 million market cap is not crazy. But the problem is
It's
there are
not
so many
crazy, but what
competitors.
do they do? Muse is like an NFT marketplace, and NFT
What does
marketplaces were,
anyone? What does anything do
but
besides?
NFT marketplaces were really the thing of
Yeah,
the
I
last go
understand what you're.
round,
I
and so
understand what
they're
you're
just
trying to
not
say.
gonna they're
I
not
understand.
gonna command $380 million. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah,
But I could
I
see
know
them.
you are, Mr. FOMO, holding off on those NFT purchases because you're getting the new Trump mobile phone.
Yeah,
You're saving up your money for in Bitcoin for that. But jokes
yeah,
aside,
I don't know. I don't know if I'll be getting that.
but in all seriousness,
Probably has the same kind of effectiveness as Trump University.
I think the markets are waiting to see what happens if the U.S. And the whales are manipulating. Therefore, right now, what you might see is if we go down to 102, 101, you might see a squeeze forward. If people try to short Bitcoin, I could see a liquidation that way. I look psychological reasons. We've talked about this. We kind of have to hold 100. I would hate to see us go back into the low 90s again and try to come up back up. Not saying it can't happen. It very well can, but again, you'd be blind. And you keep seeing these influencers saying, biggest bull run ever, biggest bull run ever. It's coming, it's coming. They don't know that. And I thank you for a couple people commented. More people should watch your show. You guys are objective. You're not trying to fool or screw around your audience. Yeah, and that maybe we should just try to go for clicks and have people half dressed and screaming 1 million is coming tomorrow and ETH's going to 5K. I wish that was going to happen, but that's not what the show is really about. We do have some integrity, at least a little bit left, and, and that's not reality. Now, I still think the 150 to 180 can happen, but I think there has to be more clarity around what's happening in the world, and we'll have to wait and see what that happens. I'm not going to make
Specifically with the U.S.
well,
If
I'm
the
not going to make
U.S.
a
or other
war.
major superpowers enter that war, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for every market, not just the Bitcoin market. But um, the problem is the U.S. has moved fighter jets into the European theater. They've moved. I believe they'd move aircraft carrier, at least one aircraft carrier, into the Middle East or into Middle Eastern waters. And so the US is definitely posturing as if they are preparing to get involved. And so that is scary. And if I was going to say one thing that is driving the Bitcoin market down right now, I would say that's probably it in the last 24 hours is because of those things happening. Now, if you would have told me this was happening when we were in the 70s and that we would have made it all the way up to 110 and that the US was posturing as if they were going to go to war in the Middle East again, I would have said, oh, the Bitcoin market would have crashed all the way back down to the 70s. So I am actually proud of it and surprised to see that it's holding on this strong at 104 despite everything that's going on. That gives me hope that there's still going to be more room for growth in Bitcoin, and that hope extends to an alt season. But if we drop down to the 90s, maybe you can give me your thoughts on this. But if we go back down to the 90s, I have a hard time believing we'll get to 130 in the next 12 days, like Plan B said. And I have a hard time thinking we'll get to 130 even by the end of July.
Well, it all depends on what the U.S. decides to do. You're 1,000,000% right. Um, if there is stability in the world, this thing's going to skyrocket, and there will be an alt season. It will not be like the rest, but there will be some resilience of an alt season. Scroll back, zoom out, and look at this for perspective. A year ago, Bitcoin price 66K. 2 years ago, Mr. FOMO, 26K. in late May. I'm just saying, Bitcoin's going to outlast all these politicians, all these wars, and all this government. That's the crazy part. These leaders will come and go. And 30 years from now, Bitcoin will still be there. And a lot of these guys, some of them, no one's going to cry over tears over, are going to be long in the grave. And that's the reality. So again, you got to look at Bitcoin as a marriage, a long-term commitment. Now you can get out after 4 and 8 years and be very happy. That's the parallel. But if you're trying to make it rich and you're planning to sell August 1st and have all your problems go away, you're going to be disappointed. And unfortunately, same thing goes with the alts right now. But the moment that ETH, I think, gets momentum and we have some clarity, if all 3 major wars ended right now, then we would, I think, there's no telling how quickly Bitcoin would recover. I'm including the tariff war in that as well as a kind of a third war. That's also played a factor, right? So you have 3 things that are, and Russia, Ukraine, I think actually has very little deterrence at this point because it's been happening for so long. But the other 2, obviously major, and we'll wait and see. Keep it here for the very latest, because if the US does decide to go in today and Bitcoin plummets, we'll probably do an emergency show and walk you through it, because they'll have some really, really specific consequences on the rest of the summer and the rest of the bull run, and we'll keep you updated. For Mr.